Welcome to the National Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C. And here is the location where it all began. There is a commemorative plaque, and the two original trees that were planted in 1912 are still standing, as well as the Japanese stone lantern. So let's welcome spring with a walk around the tidal basin. This is Paddles the beaver, and he's got a very important message for everyone. Please do not pick the blossoms or climb on the trees. Picking the blossoms can actually hurt the tree. And if you're picking up blossoms from the ground or branches that may have broken, you're actually destroying part of the display. So it's best to just leave everything the way you see it. Now here we will find the commemorative plaque on the stone. And it reads here, the first Japanese cherry trees presented to the city of Washington as a suggestion of friendship on March 27th of 1912. Now before we see those two trees, we will take a look at the Japanese stone lantern. And that is lit every year by the Japanese princess. And here is where we find what is to be believed the two original trees right by the lovers that were planted in 1912. Here are their identification tags. It's Q326 and Q327. Their numbers are even next to each other. And they are still blooming, and these beautiful trees are over 100 years old. Now if you look at where the Japanese stone lantern was placed, as well as right across from the Jefferson Memorial, but most of all, the fact that these trees are so symmetrically planted. If you think about it, when trees are very small, people often put them very close together. So it's believed that those are the two original trees from 1912. Now if you look around, you'll see a scattered planting pattern because trees have been added year after year. But it was less than a dozen people that were here in 1912. It was a really small...
I lost my mom.
I hate to call it a small gesture because look at how big it is. It was a really small... I can't even call it a small experience because look at how large it has amplified to. It was witnessed by just a small amount of people. That's the correct way to say it. And there was an actual plaque put at those trees, but a vandal had taken the plaque. So it's up to the Parks Department to guesstimate which trees they are. Now if you see these trees, they also look like they could be in that age range of 100 years old and above. But they're not planted rather symmetrically. So the ideal is that it is the two trees that are closest to the Japanese stone lantern. Now this is my personal story. Do you ever have someone ask you like how to get to your happy place? You're like, what is your happy place? Well, for me, this is it, right here. If it's in the middle of winter and it's snowing, or if it's a really just a rough day somewhere, you know, and someone reminds you, hey, don't you have a happy place, somewhere that you go? That it's just always a nice place to think about, even if you're not physically there. Well, this would be it. Walking right here at peak bloom at the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Not only is it absolutely beautiful, a gesture of friendship between two countries, two nations, but I've been coming to this event since 1991, and I have never seen angry people at a cherry blossom festival. As crowded as it can get, people just tend to have a really nice day, whether they're having a picnic, taking photographs, just walking around. It tends to draw really a great crowd, and a rather eclectic crowd. You see people of all different ages, people from all different states come to the district. And the same thing is actually happening right now, because there's about a very similar blooming period in Japan. Hanami Sakura, where the flowers are being adorned. And some of these trees are in fact connected directly to the trees that are blooming in Japan. And not because they sent them to the United States. The United States had actually sent grafts to Japan after periods of storms when some of their trees did not make it. So the friendship has actually extended between the United States and Japan and the United States, sending trees to each other in both directions. What not a lot of people do know is that the first bunch of cherry blossom trees, I know I pointed out the one that's over 100 years old that the two women planted, but there were thousands, over I think it was 2,000 trees that were sent to Washington, D.C. that had to be burned because they had bugs. And the Department of Environmental Protection was concerned about bringing these plants, these trees, into the United States, so they were burned. And in a great gesture, Japan sent even more trees. Now what we see here at the tidal basin are the Yoshino white cherry blossoms. If you look real close, you'll see, well, the light is behind right there. Here's one that I could show you a little bit better. As the bud is closed, it's pink. And as the Yoshinos open, they turn more white. So sometimes you'll see a photograph around the tidal basin where it looks completely pink. That's usually right before the stage known as puffy white. And as the blossoms go to peak bloom, which I believe we're at right now, they turn more and more white. But there are other trees from Japan in different areas of Washington, D.C. The Kwanzan tree, which is blooming in pink and stays pink the entire blooming process. Now you will not find that tree at the tidal basin. When the original planting took place in 1912, they continued to populate around the tidal basin the same style of tree. And then if you go over, I think it's West Potomac Park, is where you will find the Kwanzan trees. That doesn't mean there's only two. There's the okame, and the list goes on and on. Now the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial was created after the tidal basin already had a bunch of cherry blossom trees planted. So what did they do? Did they cut them down? Well, they added more. They did not cut down any of these trees, and you can see they filled in the area quite well with even more cherry blossoms. Now, if you can, imagine seeing the blossoms reflecting off the water. That is often an ideal location for planting cherry blossoms, is by the water. And we are indeed very close to Reagan National Airport and the White House. So if you are filming here for more than 3 to 5 minutes, you will have planes overhead. There's no emergency at the cherry blossoms. So appreciation, that is the key that we want to look at right now. Is we never know how long these blossoms will last. They're beautiful, but we don't know how long they'll be here for. And that's the story of your life, my life, and the message of the cherry blossoms in many ways is to appreciate the gift that you have that is so beautiful, called life, and so short. You never know when it's going to end. Sometimes you don't even know when the best day is coming. Hence peak bloom, it switches from year to year. Now this is an interesting peak bloom because we had cold weather after the blossoms had already opened. Now what happens when cold weather comes after the blossoms already opened? Some of them don't make it. But the gift of the cherry blossoms and the story of the beauty between the United States and Japan shows you proof that cold weather can't stop a great event. And we are in March right now. Sometimes peak bloom, average peak bloom was listed for many years as April 4th. And this year, peak bloom is here in March. Now, it's looking like peak bloom has passed. Now, this is because of the cold. Peak bloom is determined when 70% of the blossoms are open and out. So we are indeed at that spot. I mean, if you look at this tree right here, it's all open. Now I could maybe show you more of the pinkish color a little bit better here. There we go. As the bud is closed, it's very, very pink. And as they open up, they turn more white. So if you're looking at a shot right before the blossoms open, the whole tidal basin area will indeed look pink. And you'll see all of the literature to visit DC, and it's usually in wonderful shades of pink. But like I said earlier, this location is a primarily white flowering Yoshino. Now, is there anything special that they did to make these trees grow here? No, they just kept replanting them. These trees can grow in climates further north, like New York. I bought one for my mother for Mother's Day, but actually one of the Kwanzan and one of the Yoshinos, and they're both growing quite well. Now, back behind the Jefferson Memorial, by where you see there is a bridge. I'll zoom in for you. There's an interesting story over there. And I'm not going to walk you all the way over, but there is a tree in this area that stands right by a holly bush. Now a holly tree. It's called the indicator tree. And it blooms about 7 to 10 days prior to the rest of the trees that surround the tidal basin. And that's pretty impressive considering how many thousands of trees are planted here. And every year that indicator tree is on point with blooming before the surrounding cherry blossom trees. And let's show you another area across from the tidal basin. What a great reflection. In this area directly across from us is the cherry blossom stage. And at that location, you can see free concerts throughout the afternoon, as well as get lunch, meet with the park rangers, and take an evening lantern walk around the tidal basin with a park ranger and hear the story of the cherry blossoms as told through a lantern walk. Now, I've done that and it's really incredible. And I highly recommend it. I've actually brought another friend and I went and did it again. So you might even want to do that with a different park ranger and get even more information. But that doesn't mean that the only thing that happens here is at the tidal basin. There is the opening ceremonies that take place in a theater. There is the Sakura Matsuri, the Japanese street fair, which really encompasses a lot of Japanese culture, pop music, anime, video games, people in fancy dress, cosplay. And that is not in this area. That'll be over by Pennsylvania Avenue. There is the Blossom Kite Festival. Let's show you the beautiful Lincoln Memorials that way, the George Washington Monument. That is the area where you would find the the Blossom Kite Festival, which used to be known as the Smithsonian Kite Festival. Name change. So what I'm trying to say is, there is a lot. I'm only attempting to show you the tidal basin area because it is peak bloom. Interesting enough though is once people start looking at the blossoms, I feel it's peak bloom in everyone's heart. To tell you the truth, this is not just a day that everyone waits for. The entire city celebrates this season. It opens up the tourism season for Washington, D.C., but the hotel lobbies go pink. Macy's, the storefronts along throughout D.C. will do cherry blossom and pink window displays. Artists from Japan from both paint, print, stage, and music will fly in to perform throughout the city. There's a dance party called Cherry Blast with more of an American English twist to the music, but in the spirit of a cherry blossom rave. Get the idea? There's a lot to see. So many people will come one of the weekends and there will be no blossoms left. It happens. But the lucky part about that is there are different types of trees, so if you walk around you might still find one. Even if people tell you there are no blossoms left, you may still be able to find a few. If not, then there are events. There are events throughout the city. Some of the retail stores actually brought trees into the store, so you can go indoors sometimes and see cherry blossoms. So if inclement weather does come, there's always a way to celebrate. And here's where you'll line up for your Cherry Blossom Festival talks, every hour on the hour. So it'll happen in the daytime as well as the lantern walks in the evening. Alright, until next time, happy Cherry Blossom Festival, welcome spring, the nation's greatest springtime event. Till next time.